Maximus Decimus Meridius. Say it with me, Maximus Decimus Meridius. Lucius is none other than Maximus's son. In the first Gladiators movie, you see when he meets him for the first time when he's locked inside of the Gladiators arena, inside the Colosseum, and he comes up to the gate and Maximus is talking to him and he's asking him questions and he's infatuated with Maximus the person. And then you see Maximus puts the connection together when Lucius tells him his name. Fast forward to the new movie. Lucius is living his life. He has his own family. He's enjoying himself in his own country, his own area. Guess what? The Romans come again and attack his country, same way it happened with Maximus, when Maximus, all he wanted to do was go home, and the emperor wouldn't allow him to. He wanted him to become the new emperor of Rome, and Maximus never wanted that. Now that Lucius has his home taken over, his wife is killed, similar to how his dad's wife and child were killed. His wife wasn't killed as gruesomely as Maximus's wife was, being burned and hung. This movie has a lot of nostalgic parts that reference the original movie, and you can kind of see how things tie together. Lucius loses his wife, Maximus lost his wife. The craziness is, if you didn't pay attention, you wouldn't have known that Lucius was potentially Maximus' son. Lucius was standing there and I seen Maximus' brain just like toiling. He didn't know what to think, but he knew it was his son. It's crazy that losing a woman that you love makes these guys go on a rampage, but obviously that's the strength that a man needs sometimes to be able to, do what's necessary. So going to the Gladiator's tank, there was a fight where Lucius, became a slave. And once he became this slave, he ran into Maximus. And Maximus is played by none other than the great Denzel Washington. And who doesn't love watching Denzel Washington movies? As much Denzel as you can give me, I want it until he, decides he's tired and he wants to retire. Maximus, the slave owner that tries to win the Gladiator awards and things like that, because he has this hidden agenda where he wants to be the emperor one day, but he has to gain power to do so. And what other way can you gain power than having the strongest gladiators? And he sees Lucius for who he is and the rage that's inside of him. He realizes the value of having Lucius as one of his gladiators to try and impress the emperors. And the emperors, let me tell you about these emperors. These emperors look crazy. Both of them have red hair, white makeup on their faces. One's smarter than the other one. The other one's pretty dumb and young and crazy, but they both have this like bloodlust. They're not even looking out for their country. All they care about is being entertained. So they have men, women, hookers, whores, all in their areas, sitting there, entertaining them, things like that. And every time something happens, they want to have the games, which is not really a game because these people are losing their lives, whether slave or not slave. Once Lucius learns of this and Maximus tells him that, hey, like whoever's head you want, I'll help you get it, because Maximus has that ulterior motive of eventually becoming the most powerful Roman. Nobody knows what Maximus's background is, and he doesn't ever reveal where he comes from and why he's so infatuated with the power. But he did show us that Marcus Aurelius had branded him as one of the slaves, so he potentially was a gladiator back in the day. The story goes on. Lucius's country got overtaken and many of his people were killed. There was a general named Maximus who inflicted the war on Lucius's country. So once he became this gladiator and now he's going to be fighting, all he cares about is getting Acacius's head. But little does he know that his mom, Lucia, is actually married to Acacius. Acacius has a very, very similar situation to his dad, in that all he wants to do is protect Rome. He wants to be a good, upstanding man. He wants to return to his family. We all know too well that these warriors and these strong generals that think they're doing the right thing don't end up getting the treatment that they deserve. They end up having to go through a lot of pain and turmoil in deciding what's right and wrong. What do we expect is going to happen with Acacius and Lucius? Of course, they're going to have a showdown in the Colosseum. What else would happen, right? Acacius is put in the ring and Lucius is put in the ring, and the only thing Lucius cares about is taking out Acacius. After that, he feels like his life has done what he needs to do. But his mother, Lucia, actually met up with him and tried to explain multiple things to him about why he was left abandoned, why he had the life he had, how things changed in his lifestyle and where he came from. Back to the fight at hand. So now Acacius is in the ring. He sees Lucius come in. He's trying to plead with Lucius like, don't do it, because his heart really isn't against Lucius. He never maliciously tried to attack Lucius. But the problem was, all Lucius saw is that Acacius killed his wife. And from there, that was what made him rage. So they end up fighting, battling, going back and forth. Acacius throws his hand up to surrender, and guess what? The two dumb emperors are sitting right there. They want him to execute him, take him out, because they want him punished by the god because he betrayed them. He actually had a plan to try to overtake the throne to be able to give Rome back to the Romans and restore stability and peace throughout the country of Rome. Lucius never knew this plan. They were going to break him out and free him that night, but Lucia and Acacius got caught in the act. So now that's why he stands on trial and letting the gods decide what his fate will be. Now, once he surrenders, he goes down to his knees. Lucius starts to think about all the things, and he realizes that Acacius really never meant to hurt him or his family or cause him any harm. So he also drops to his knees, and it's just like the whole crowd is just shocked and stunned. And the emperors are upset because they're like, man, we wanted Acacius to die because he's a traitor to the crown. When they were the traitors to the crown and not treating the people the right way, people were not being fed properly. All they cared about is the games and fighting and bloodlust and having sex and whatever else they wanted to do. They're sentencing Acacius to death. All of the archers of the Roman army start shooting them with the arrows, and the mom is forced to sit there and watch. She's chained to her chair, sitting next to these two emperors. And guess who's standing right next to him? Maximus. With this whole plot that he's building up, he's just constantly trying to grab power. And as he's coaching the emperors, you see that he's just got that devious plan. And Denzel is a cold piece of work. Anytime Denzel is made a villain, he always crushes the role. Acacius ends up being killed. Guess what? The crowd is not happy. The Romans are not happy. They're up in arms. The emperors are messing up. They're not realizing that they just caused themselves to be public enemy number one throughout their country. And Maximus the snake, right there whispering in the ear, telling the emperor, oh, you know what? Yeah, so let's just go on and get out of here because, you know, something's going to happen to you guys if you stay around. He goes back to their chambers, convinces the younger emperor, red hair, white makeup, eyeshadow, to kill his older brother. How do you allow the villain? The craziness to me is that Maximus was able to convince the younger emperor to kill his older brother to be able to be the number one power. And now what does that do? That now makes him have power and puts him in the chain of command. He accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. And once he accomplishes this, he kills the other emperor. So now who's to stop him from anything that he does? Lucius. So remember how I told you guys that Acacius had that army that was coming to overthrow Rome? Well, that army was still ready to overthrow Rome, but who was going to tell them it was time to go? Well, guess what? Lucius sends a message with one of the guys that he meets while he's a gladiator, and that guy rides out to go meet the general of the rebel army that's coming to help them free Rome, and he sees the ring that Maximus had that says Maximus's name and Marcus Aurelius. That signified to the general what was being told to him was true, and that the real prince of Rome, Lucius Aurelius, was there and he was ready to fight. So now his mother is being stuck inside of the arena of the Colosseum, and they tie her up to this like nice little float, kind of like it's a parade. It seems like every story we ever watch or hear about Romans, they love fighting, they love brawling, they love all these different things. Why do we never hear like the good stories of the Romans of like, oh, how they treated people well, how they did this and that? Did they never do any good? I don't know. But anyways, the mom is tied up to this float, and now you see that Lucius has to go in there and he needs to fight the Roman army. Not just one person, not two people, not three, not four. He now has at least 25, 30 guys surrounding him around this float, and he's tasked with the job of trying to protect his mother without dying to be able to save her life. Little do they know, the same guy that rode off to go help Lucius get a hold of that rebel army, he actually gave him the keys to unlock all the slaves inside of the Gladiator arena. And with doing so, when he unlocked the slaves, now they're helping him fight against the Roman army. When he lifts his sword in the air ready to fight, all the other guys rush out there and they help him attack the Roman army. So it's a whole brawl in the middle of the arena. Everything's just going bonkers. And this is when things get better. You think that it's going to be over. No, Maximus disappears. He's trying to run out there and get to the army before they get to Rome to try and, negotiate or plead his case or whatever he thinks he's going to do. The Roman army has about 6,000 men ready to go, and this opposing army has about 5,000 men ready to go. But then you also got the slaves, and you have Lucius and them in the inside that are also fighting the Romans. Coming from there, it gets crazier. They all end up meeting right outside of the moat of the castle. And this is when Lucius tries to chase after Maximus. He meets him head on right in the middle, and they get off the horses. And then you know what happens here. Obviously they fight. And Maximus and him are fighting into the river. All this stuff's clashing around. And you know, even though Denzel's a little bit older, the fight's still good. Back and forth, falling down. Lucius is getting pounded on in the river, and he's getting jabbed with the sword over and over in his armor. And that armor is Maximus's armor. So while he's under the water, he has flashbacks of, you know, going to the other world, which would be going towards heaven or wherever their land is that they go to after they die. And then all of a sudden, he just gets the strength that he just, bang! He takes Maximus upside the head, he cuts him up, ends up winning the day. Once he does this, he now addresses both armies because they're both standing there ready to go. You can just see everybody's gonna have a big brawl. It's gonna be blood, guts, all of that stuff all throughout. But obviously, Lucius has his father's mindset and his grandfather's mindset. Marcus Aurelius wanted the people to have peace, and they wanted Rome to be ran by the people, not by one person. So he gives this beautiful speech. He goes back and forth, tells all the people how this is going to be better for them. If they want to fight, it's up to them. They end up deciding to back him. Movie ends. Even though Maximus never wanted to become an emperor, Lucius looks like he's going to be the next emperor, and it leaves room for the story to continue from here. I recommend watching this movie. I give this a solid B rating. The only thing I would say is some of the story was very, very much like the first movie, so that was like a plus. And it was also like, okay, let's get a little bit different variation. But the parts that were better with this one that I like is that the two emperors were crazy, and one was less crazy than the other one. And eventually the two ended up being killed because they fought against each other. If you get a chance to go watch this movie, definitely go watch it. As I said, Denzel plays a good villain. You will love the movie. It has a lot of action. This is a great film to watch. Catch you guys on the next one.